Hello, and welcome to my show on interpersonal communication. My name is Dr. Marquita Byrd, and I am Professor Emeritus at San Jose State University in the Communication Studies Department. One of the courses that I teach is interpersonal communication, and it's one of the most fulfilling because interpersonal communication is something that shapes the quality of our lives. If we have poor interpersonal relationships and communications, then that causes us to have poor experiences in life. So the better our relationships, the better our lives. Now, I'm trying to do two things today. The first is to help you to understand interpersonal communication for your own use, understand what it is and how it works in your personal life, your social life, and your work life. Secondly, I'm trying to help, what I want to do is to help you to gain the skills and knowledge that you would use to be a better communicator. So those are two goals that I have for my videos. We're going to talk today about self-concept. All of us have heard the term know thyself, and I used to think that was from the Bible, but it's actually not. The first place that it appeared was in Kemet, Egypt, which is on the continent of Africa. It was a hieroglyph on a tomb. Later, that term was adopted by Socrates himself in ancient Greece, and he used it in a play, Know Thyself. So knowing yourself and understanding yourself is essential for effective communication, essential for a healthy lifestyle, essential for healthy living in general. A central part of self-concept is the notion that it is a filter. Self-concept is a filter that everything that we say and everything that we hear comes through our self-concept. And so that it's important that we understand that everything that we experience, we interpret it through who we think we are. So let's go on then and talk about three major points today. And the first is that the definition of self-concept. The second is how we develop them. And thirdly, ways that we can come to know ourselves better. The first point is, what is self-concept? Self-concept is everything that you believe to be true about yourself. Everything that you believe to be true, and believe is the operative word. We can think things about ourselves that are not true, but because we believe them, they shape our actions. They shape how we interact with other people. For example, I've seen some people who think they look absolutely great in spandex bike shorts, but they don't. But because they believe that they do, they continue to wear them. So the operative word is what you believe to be true, and we'll talk a little bit about how we can get that belief into reality. So it's all that you believe to be true about yourself, and that includes who you think you are, your identity, what you are, what you believe yourself to be. For example, right now we have all this information coming to us about gender identities, and we are coming to understand that who someone else thinks we are may not be who we are, and therefore we have to work on understanding what I am. Body image is an important part of self-concept, and self-worth. Self-worth is the importance that you place on yourself. And this is not about egotism. This is about worthiness, what you think you're worth in life. It includes our communication style. The first step that we have to go through in terms of getting a self-concept is understanding that we are autonomous. And how do you do that? Autonomous means that you're separate from everyone else. Well, if you've ever stood over a baby's crib and watched them touch their hands, their face, they may even put their feet in their mouth, they are exploring their body boundaries, and they come to know that they are different from the environment, autonomous. And the person who never understands that they are separate from those around them, then they tend to never grow into good adults. So self-concept is all we believe to be true about ourselves, and it can include many things like our identity. If you've ever watched one of those shows, Lost Family, and people say, well, my parents gave me away. when I was young and I don't really know who I am, even though they've been raised by wonderful people, they say I don't know who I am. So identity is a very important thing. Secondly, second point, we develop our self-concept from communication and relationships we have with each other, believe it or not. Self-concept is not something that we're born with. The baby is not exactly a blank card, but a lot of information isn't there and we have to put it on there. So our relationship with others help us to develop our self-concept. First, parents, caregivers, our parents, the way that they hold us even, the way that they look at us, the way they talk to us, the way that they touch us, all those sorts of things help to develop our self-concept. For example, if you have a parent who's holding a baby and the parents are nervous, always nervous, or never feel quite right with it, that translates to the baby. And it may say to the baby, I'm not safe, or they don't like me. So the way we communicate with the baby is very, very important. I saw this fascinating film a couple of weeks ago. A baby was introduced to his grandfather and his auntie. And this baby was only about 8 months old, but they were saying things like calling him a fat baby, a fat pie head, and the baby started crying. No language skills, but the baby knew that what they were saying was not nice. So it's important how we treat children, how we respond to them. And so that's the primary group, our caregivers, our immediate family. Then we have the secondary reference group. The secondary reference group is our larger community, the community that we grow up in. The school, the social clubs, the church, they teach us who we are, or whatever organizations. For example, I spent 10 years in a 4-H club, and people say, you're a black person and you were in a 4-H club? Yes, I was. I lived in a rural area. And from that club, I got my pledge to life. I pledged my head to clearer thinking, my heart to greater loyalty, my hands to larger service, and my health to better living for my club, my community, my country, and the world. That's the motto I live by. And that shaped who I am. The 4-H, some people are in scouts, all various sorts of things. The community that we live in my little community that I grew up in, I had a certain reputation because of a family that I came from. My family was a well-known family, and people thought a lot of them. And so when they met me, and they would say, "Oh, you're Miss Rose's granddaughter," wow, I knew I had to lift my head up and behave properly. So the larger community, the school that you go to. The first school I went to was a traditional African American school. We now call them segregated. I don't want to use segregated. They were a community school. Being in that school, wow, how they shaped my self-concept. They always treated me like I was smart. They treated me like I could do anything. They never said I couldn't do something because I was a girl. And my self-concept was very positive because of that experience. So the school, the social clubs are important. Or even the nursery that you go to. My youngest son was in a nursery school that was very, very good for him, but not good for some other babies. And I say that because in the morning when I would come to the nursery school and I would drop my son off, I would walk through the nursery. And there was one baby that was always in his crib by himself. And one of the things we don't realize is that attractiveness of a child or an infant can influence how people treat the baby. So this baby, his parents, one was a very elder gentleman, and his mother was in wheelchair bound. And I think the nursery school responded to him on that basis. And he would just be in his crib every morning by himself. Whereas my son would be out playing and people would be holding him. I'm sure that that had a negative impact on the baby's self-concept, the one who was left in the bed. So we have to always pay attention to how we treat young people. A third reference group is society itself. For example, when I grew up, society was telling me, a young African American girl, that I wasn't going to be able to do anything, that I was going to spend my life pregnant and barefoot, that I didn't have much of an opportunity to grow. That's what society told me. But my parents told me something else. My parents said, you're going to be successful. My parents said, you're going to be able to do whatever you want to do. So society shapes who we are, even from the hospital when you're born and you get blue and pink. The toys that people bring to the baby, all of those start shaping the self-concept. But society tells us who, for example, who gets prenatal care. If your mother doesn't get prenatal care, you may not have the same opportunities as others if there are health issues. Society decides where you go to school, what kind of school you go to, where you live, how you're to be treated, even with gender. So society shapes who we are right from the beginning. Lastly, self. Here's the great part. I love this part. No matter what your primary reference group tells you, no matter what your secondary groups tells you, no matter what society tells you, you also have a part in shaping your self-concept, because you can decide who you are and what you want to be. And so you can adjust that to meet your needs, and that's what's exciting. So if you don't get a self-concept from your family and society that's one that's beneficial, you can develop your own. So that's great. Now you may say to yourself, point 3, what are the ways that you can come to know yourself better? Because we depend on others around us to tell us who we are. Here's the activity that I have in my classes. I ask them to list 10 words or phrases that they would use to define themselves. They don't have to be good, bad, perfect. It could be their personality, their physique, their communication style, or other characteristics that they would use to describe. Sounds like a dating app, right? So you do 10 words or phrases to define yourself. You could get a piece of paper and do this for yourself. Then you ask maybe 3 or 4 other people who know you. It could be your parents, it could be your siblings, it could be friends, classmates, people at work, although you really don't want to try it at work because it'll be kind of personal. But you get other people and ask each one of them to write a list of 10 words or phrases that they would use to describe you. Now, and you assure them, okay, I'm not going to get angry with you if they're not all good. I'm not going to fall out with you. But you get them to do it. Then you write down how these descriptors shape your actions, your values, your commitments. You start with your list, 10 words or phrases, and you go through each list from the other people and see which words or phrases that you have that are alike. So if you say, I'm talkative, and one says that you're exuberant, they may mean the same things. So, or extrovert, talkative and extrovert. So you see which descriptors are alike, and then you go from there. And that helps you to come to know yourself better. And believe me, all of us may think we know ourselves, but feedback from other people can help us know ourselves better. Even from an enemy. Our enemies tend to know us, or people who don't like us, tend to know us better than any other person. And so I've surprised people who have said, oh, I don't like you. And I will come back with, why? Let's sit down and talk about that. What is it going on about me that causes you not to like me? And I learn things about myself. So getting feedback even from people who may not be your best friend can be very useful. So I'd like to conclude this by saying that the good thing is that if you're not happy with your self-concept, you can change it by listing who you want to be, for example. So you have this list of 10 words or phrases that you would use to describe yourself. Let's make a new list. In 5 years, how would you like to describe yourself? And then you can work toward being who you want to be. Here's who I am. And hopefully there's some things in your self-concept that you like. So here's who I am, and here's who I want to be. And you make goals, you make plans, you take steps to come to that person that you want to be in 5 years. Very, very effective. I've lived my life on the 5-year plan. I've set goals for a 5-year period. Where do I want to be? Who do I want to be in 5 years? And how can I achieve that? So you can actually shape in your future who you want to be. I hope that this It's the beginning of your journey with your self-concept, coming to know yourself. If you don't like yourself, you're in trouble. If you cannot spend time with yourself, you're in trouble. Because after all, who's there everywhere we go? Yourself. Wherever you go, you're there. So you need to know it and come to like it. So today, I'm glad you're here with me to come to understand how important your self-concept is and how important it is that you understand that everything that you say, everything that you hear, everything that you think comes through your self-concept, and use that accordingly. So I hope that, I'm glad that you joined me today. I need for you to click at the bottom of this show. There's a PowerPoint attached to it and notes so that you can get a more full understanding of self-concept. Come to know yourself, come to like yourself, and understand how it shapes your communication and your relationships. Thank you. I will leave you with live long and prosper.